Have you been thinking about why estrogen is important on your fertility journey? I get questions about this all the time. Estrogen, like other reproductive hormones, is an essential hormone for healthy reproductive function, basically for good fertility. In this video, you're going to learn everything about estrogen and getting pregnant. What does it do? How does it impact your fertility? And should you be testing it? I'm going to show you how I review your estrogen levels and how I apply this to the members of my online fertility program so you can learn how this hormone works. Before we get started with today's episode, I did create this free guide called Food for Fertility that you can download and use to get started to create your own fertility plan. I'll leave the link in the description below to make it easy for you. All right, let's jump into it. Estrogen is a sex hormone that's necessary for maintaining your good sexual and reproductive health. Estrogen is primarily produced in the ovaries, and levels naturally fluctuate throughout your menstrual cycle and decline during menopause. There are three types of estrogen: E1, E2, and E3. Estrone, E1, is the primary form of estrogen that your body makes after menopause. E2, estradiol, the main one I look at, is the primary form of estrogen in your body during your reproductive years. It's the most potent form of estrogen, and when I run labs, this is what I typically check. Estriol, E3, is the primary form of estrogen during pregnancy. Estrogen plays a crucial role in your fertility by affecting ovulation, your uterine lining, and cervical mucus. So during ovulation, your estrogen levels peak in the days leading up to ovulation, which are the most fertile days, and this triggers your LH to surge and release the egg. When we're talking about supporting your uterine lining, estrogen thickens the lining of the uterus or the endometrium to prepare it for pregnancy. This thickness, how thick it is, affects whether a fertilized egg can attach to the uterine wall or not. And when we're talking about cervical mucus, estrogen thins the mucus, which allows sperm to swim through and reach the egg. These estrogen-induced changes make it easier for you to become pregnant if you have intercourse. That's important when you're trying to get pregnant. Regardless of where you are in your menstrual cycle, the presence of estrogen makes it more comfortable to have intercourse. It keeps your vaginal walls thick, elastic, and lubricated, reducing pain associated with sex. Nobody wants painful sex, so estrogen makes it easier. So what are the signs and symptoms of low or high estrogen? Well, I'm glad you asked the question. Low estrogen is often a telltale sign that you're approaching menopause. Low estrogen may also signify a fertility problem, a nutritional deficiency, or other endocrine problems. Symptoms of low estrogen may include some of these: breast tenderness, weak or brittle bones, hot flashes or night sweats, that's the most common one that everybody hears and talks about, irregular periods or no period at all, amenorrhea, headaches, trouble concentrating, fatigue, drowsiness, trouble sleeping, no one wants that, and mood changes, irritability, and depression. One we've already discussed, but I'm going to bring up again, is vaginal dryness, which often leads to painful intercourse. Those are the signs that you might experience if you've got low estrogen. But if you have too much estrogen, excess estrogen, or maybe called estrogen dominance, then this can be associated with multiple conditions like polyps, uterine polyps, fibroids, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis pain, or ovarian cysts. Your levels may be high because you have too much estrogen in relationship to your other sex hormones like progesterone, or they might just be high on their own. You do have to do lab work to know so that you know how to address it properly. This can also be induced by medications that you're taking that contain estrogen, and that can throw off your body and throw off the balance of estrogen on its own. Symptoms may include decreased sex drive, weight gain, especially in your waist and hips. So this is where that weight really gets stuck right in the middle. Irregular cycles, we kind of talked about that before. Unpredictable timing, light or heavy bleeding. This is the irregularity of your menstruation. Worsening symptoms associated with this could be worse PMS or even PMDD. One of the more important pieces regarding your fertility having to do with estrogen is its relationship to FSH. It's really important that you understand that estrogen and FSH actually support one another, and they help to regulate each other's levels because there is a feedback loop between FSH and E2, specifically estradiol, not the other estrogens, to help keep them both balanced and supporting your fertility. That's why when we check your hormones, we're checking both of those. We're checking FSH and LH. I believe that everyone should have their estrogen tested, specifically on day 2, 3, or 4 of their cycle. And you should be getting that tested, your E2, along with FSH, LH, and progesterone. There's other hormones that you can track as well, but those are the main ones when we're talking about estrogen. You can also track this throughout your cycle to see how it's changing over the course of your cycle, because as I mentioned, your estrogen fluctuates throughout your cycle. Hopefully now you can see why estrogen is so important and how it can impact your fertility and your reproductive function throughout your life, both positively and negatively. If you want to check your estrogen and all your hormones and get a personalized fertility coaching plan, then head on over to marksklar.com/discovery call to speak to a real human on my team so we can identify if having me as your fertility coach is the right next step for you. I'm going to leave that link down below as well. I'm also going to leave you with the other video with the 9 things you need to know when you're trying to conceive. Until the next video, stay fertile.